Oh, look, yo, this is the map from mobile. This is the map from mobile, too. Anybody recognize it?
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and history, they say, tends to repeat itself. Back in 2009, the original Modern Warfare 2 had a shotgun called the Model 1887, and when used with the akimbo attachment, it had incredible damage, spread, and range, causing it to be ridiculously overpowered, which is definitely saying something considering pretty much everything in that game was overpowered. Well, after a few weeks of fun, rage, and gamer word-filled kill cams, the akimbo Model 1887s were nerfed, and the shotgun faded away into obscurity, but the memory of the akimbo models lived on for years and almost became a legend told by players who were around playing Call of Duty back then. Well, last week, Sledgehammer Games decided to revive the legacy of the akimbo models by adding in a new aftermarket part for the Lockwood MK2 marksman rifle, which in essence turns it into the akimbo models from back in the day. With the right attachments, this setup was wild, using scopes that reduce recoil, using lasers that are really good with no downsides, since technically you can't aim down sight, and anything else that would tighten up your hipfire spread and your shotgun pellets would result in a shotgun that felt like a sniper and has all the benefits of being able to fire two guns at once. Just like back in the original Modern Warfare 2, this shotgun setup was dominating lobbies and causing people to get pretty annoyed, so just like Infinity Ward did back in 2009, Sledgehammer Games, 15 years later, nerfed the akimbo model shotguns. Today, a new update went through which nerfed the standing hipfire minimum and maximum spread, which means your shotgun pellets are a bit more random and more likely to miss your target the further away you are from them. Today I hopped on using the exact same attachments that I had pre-nerf, and this was my very first experience. So it's pretty obvious these guns are not nearly as powerful as what they were before because you're much less accurate. This means that the models are still pretty good up close, but they aren't nearly the snipers that they were the past week, and honestly, I think that's a pretty good change. You can still get that really tight hipfire spread with these guns if you're crouching or if you're prone, which may result in some cheeky shots downrange in game modes like Search and Destroy, but especially for respawn game modes, this nerf brought the models back down to earth while still making them a viable option. As somebody who loves to shotgun in the COD franchise, I've honestly been pretty disappointed with the shotgun balance in this game overall. Aside from random meme setups like the pre-nerf akimbo models or the aftermarket haymaker, shotguns just don't seem very consistent or good or even fun to use in this game, which leads me to believe that even after the nerf, these akimbo models here are probably still the best shotgun option within the game. Back in games like Black Ops 2, my top weapon in my combat record was the Remington 870. Back in COD World War II, my top weapon was the combat shotgun. I love to use pump action shotguns within the COD franchise, but balancing them is really tricky. If they're too good, then they dominate lobbies. If they're not good at all, they're completely pointless. And I suppose it's better for shotguns overall to be more underpowered as compared to them being overpowered. That being said, however, the post-nerf models are still incredibly viable. Arguably, again, they're still probably the best shotguns in the game currently, but they pale in comparison to their pre-nerf counterpart. Now, when it comes to the OG broken akimbo models, just how broken were they, right? Like, people have been talking about these things for years, and since it was 2009 when they came out, and in 2009 when they got nerfed, finding footage of them can actually be pretty tricky because the COD scene hadn't blown up yet. Things like Machinima Respawn haven't taken over, and by that point, very few people had capture cards, and the ones who did were using things like dazzles and easy caps, so it's very difficult to find proper footage. It's even harder to find footage in the proper aspect ratio and above 240p, but hey, we have to deal with what we have. Here is going to be a video from a channel called Usernames. This video was posted on December 23rd of 2009. Here they show what the pre-nerf models were like and then compare them to the post-nerf models, and as you guys can see, the range wasn't that wild. It was still pretty damn good, don't get me wrong, but people back in the day and the stories that have been passed down over the years make it sound like you were getting sniped across wasteland by the akimbo models, but the reality was they had really good range, they just weren't that ridiculously powerful, or at the very least, they don't really seem to live up to the legend and the legacy see that they've left behind. And the reason why these guns were so good to begin with is when you equipped a Kimbo, that was it. It just gave you 2 shotguns, right? And you had the same range and everything. Well, after the nerf, Infinity Ward made it so when you ran a Kimbo on the models, you had wider hipfire spread as well as shorter range. The Kimbo models had less range than a single model, which we can see in the comparison clip here. Before the nerf, you could get a one-shot kill across the park here in Skid Row, but after the nerf, you have to go like halfway through the park to even be able to hit your target. Here we have some HD pre-nerf model gameplay from Basher, which is a really rare commodity for back in the day. This was posted to YouTube on December 18th of 2009, and as you guys can see, the guns were really good, but realistically, they weren't sniping people across the map or anything. There were times where you would turn the corner and blast 2 people away with 1 shot because of the spread of the guns, along with Modern Warfare 2's very fast time to kill, but in general, the game-to-game fights that you would get into were a lot more normalized. What the pre-nerf models were good at was clearing rooms and taking out people at relatively close ranges, which is true of pretty much all the shotguns back in Modern Warfare 2. They were all pretty good at that. The Spaz 12 was iconic because of its power, its look, and creators like Sandy Ravage. The Akimbo Double Barrel Rangers were just plain fun to run around with. The AA-12 made you feel like Terry Crews, and the Striker, well, let's be honest here, no one really used the Striker. Same with the 1014. Like, why would you choose to use those guns over the Spaz or the AA-12? Overall, I think the legend of the Model 1887 Akimbos is a fun piece of COD history. It's something that old school fans bond over, having used and having seen and having died to, but I've got to be honest, the game has evolved in these past 15 years. The Akimbo Lockwood Mark IIs that we have here in Modern Warfare 3 were way better than the pre-nerf models from the OG Modern Warfare 2. They just are. I don't think that's even really up for debate. The post-nerf Lockwood models are actually a lot more in line with what the pre-nerf models were like back in Modern Warfare 2, and for that reason, I think I'm pretty okay with today's nerf, as it makes the guns feel a lot more like they did back in the day. They're still pretty good without being game-breakingly good, and I think that's a pretty good spot for them to be in, all things considered. But still, it's wild that the OG original Akimbo models were so good back in the day that they got nerfed, and then nearly 15 years later, they essentially brought them back in all their glory just to nerf them down once again. Like I said at the very beginning of the video, history tends to repeat itself, and man, do I feel old having lived through both of these points in COD history. I remember running around in Search and Destroy using the Akimbo models. I remember so many people on my friends list back in the day who refused to enter first Prestige because I believe you got the models at level 67 or so, and 70 was the level cap. Once you got through 70, you could then Prestige. They would not Prestige because they wanted to only run around with those Akimbo models because they were that fun compared to any other shotgun that we've ever seen in Call of Duty up to that point. It was incredibly interesting. It was incredibly fun, and I do feel fortunate to be able to have played back in the day with the original models and then play with them nearly 15 years later now, and being able to talk about that in videos like this one. Ladies and gentlemen, that is all for this update video here today. I hope you enjoyed it. The models have been nerfed. They're still pretty damn good, and you can still crouch and go prone for that range, but that's not overly practical in a fast-paced game like Modern Warfare 3. But that was today's update. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Leave your thoughts and feedback down there in the comments. Thank you all so much for listening, and I hope you guys all have a wonderful day.
Technically 7 if you count War to War.